Northeast Asia's last automotive market, last production base, becomes an annual 1 million unit market in 20 years. 27th, North Korea automotive industry and market outlook, creating the miracle on the Taedong River. North Korea's Workers' Party can do a market economy. Looking at the outlook for the automotive industry following North Korea's denuclearization, a massive market opens up. 10 years after denuclearization, annual new car sales are projected to reach approximately 300,000 units, annual used car transactions 300,000 units, and the total fleet size 2 million units. 20 years after denuclearization, annual new car sales are expected to reach 1 million units, the total fleet size 5 million units. The domestic manufacturing share of CKD assembly production 50%, and the integration of North Korean-made automotive parts into global supply chains will become a reality. If North Korea transitions to a market economy after denuclearization, its automotive industry will go beyond the mere distribution of transportation to become a key driving force for the reconstruction of national key industries and the revitalization of the domestic market. Let us examine a comprehensive outlook focusing on finished vehicles, parts, market structure, and competitive relationships by brand. The North Korean automotive industry is currently extremely underdeveloped. Annual production is at the level of thousands of units, consisting mainly of military and government commercial vehicles. Most are replicas or assemblies of older Chinese and Russian models. If sanctions are lifted following denuclearization and the attraction of foreign capital and market opening proceed, rapid development is possible through low-cost production bases and the growth of the domestic market. A division of labor structure led by Chinese, Korean, and Japanese brands is the most realistic scenario. First, let us examine the current state of North Korea's automobile industry in 2025. The number of vehicles owned by North Korea is estimated to be approximately 200,000 to 300,000. North Korean automobile manufacturers include Pyeonghwa Motors, Kompyong Motors, Seungri Automobile Complex, and Chongpung Joint Venture Company. While North Korea's automobile production capacity exceeds 60,000 units per year, actual production falls significantly short at the 40,000 unit level. The largest facility, the Seungri Automobile Complex, is located in Deokcheon, South Pyongan Province, covering a site of 250,000 square meters and employing 25,000 people. It produces the passenger car Baekdusan Ho, the microbus Chungseong Ho, military trucks and artillery vehicles, and amphibious vehicles, while it serves as a key hub for North Korea's automobile industry. Its annual production volume is remarkably low compared to the scale of its facilities. Pyeonghwa Motors is equipped with production facilities capable of handling 10,000 vehicles annually, but actual production volume falls short of 1,000 units. Kompyong Motors possesses an annual production capacity of over 20,000 units and assembles and sells vehicles by importing semi-finished parts from China's Jinbei Automobile. Chongpung Joint Venture Company focuses on small cars, while also assembling and selling small and medium-sized buses and trucks imported in a semi-finished state. North Korea's automotive industry is highly dependent on China, with over 90% of its automotive parts imported from the country. Most finished vehicles sold in North Korea are imported as semi-finished products (SKD) or completely disassembled products (CKD) from China, followed by reassembly. Currently, the technological level of North Korea's automotive industry is assessed to be similar to that of South Korea in the late 1960s. The days of selling vehicles disguised as Pyeonghwa Motors through badge engineering are long gone, and Chinese automobile companies are now directly engaging in sales in North Korea. Toyota vehicles are being sold officially, and it appears that a large number of new models from Chinese domestic brands, such as SAIC Motor and Chang'an Automobile, have also entered the market. Let us examine the projections for the phased structure of market opening following denuclearization. The North Korean automobile market following denuclearization is expected to follow a complex model similar to that of Vietnam following its reforms and Myanmar following its opening in 2011. Both followed a path of explosive growth in used car imports immediately after opening, followed by new car imports, assembly production, and finally domestic production. Here is the projection for the structure of the North Korean finished vehicle market after denuclearization. In the new car versus used car dynamic, used cars will dominate during the first 10 years of opening. Considering the estimated purchasing power of North Korean residents, a per capita GDP of $700 immediately after denuclearization, the purchase of new cars will be extremely limited. It is expected that used cars from South Korea and Japan will occupy more than 80% of the initial market. Used Hyundai and Kia cars from South Korea that are over 10 years old are priced between $500 and $2,000 per unit, which is within the price range affordable for North Korea's emerging wealthy class. Japan exports over 1 million used cars annually, so early entrants could reap massive profits once the North Korean market opens. South Korea holds the most advantageous position in the used car market. This is due to a combination of linguistic and cultural affinity, a logistics network built on experience with the Kaesong Industrial Complex, and the shortest transportation route via the direct Incheon-Haeju air route. Japanese used cars are also competitive in terms of cost-effectiveness. In the new car market, a structure is projected where China leads in the initial phase, South Korea in the midterm, and the West in the long term. Chinese brands with competitive pricing will be the first to enter the new car market on a large scale. BYD, Changan, Geely, Great Wall Haval, and SAC Motor Shanghai Automotive Group already have some sales experience in North Korea and will be overwhelmingly ahead in establishing dealer networks immediately after denuclearization. The price range is $8,000 to $20,000 per unit, targeting middle-class and upper-class North Korean consumers. South Korea's Hyundai and Kia are likely to make a full-scale entry into the midterm market in 3 to 7 years, enabling premium positioning based on the unique characteristics of the Korean peninsula. Japan's Toyota and Honda will aim to enter the premium segment once legal obstacles are cleared, following the lifting of sanctions. Looking at the dynamic between passenger cars and commercial vehicles, completely different developments are expected for the two markets. Commercial vehicles face explosive demand driven by infrastructure development. Immediately after denuclearization, the market that will grow the fastest and most significantly is not passenger cars, but commercial vehicles. Large-scale infrastructure investments, such as the construction of roads, railways, ports, and factories, will begin immediately, leading to an explosion in demand for construction trucks, dump trucks, mixer trucks, and crane vehicles. Currently, the Seungri Automobile Complex primarily produces trucks, but its aging facilities are unable to meet the demand. China's Dongfeng, FAW, and SAIC have an overwhelming advantage in the commercial vehicle market. They already have experience supplying trucks to North Korea, and their prices are 30 to 50% lower than those of South Korea and Japan. Hyundai Truck and Bus and Tata Daewoo in Korea possess mid-term competitiveness as they are able to export through the Inter-Korean Cooperation Fund supported by the Korean government. By specific commercial vehicle category, small trucks under 5 tons are immediately needed for agricultural and small business logistics. 25 to 45-ton dump trucks and construction trucks meet demand at infrastructure construction sites. Refrigerated trucks meet demand for establishing cold chains for seafood and agricultural products, and buses meet demand for the modernization of urban, intercity, and express public transportation. Explosive mid- to long-term growth for passenger cars is projected due to rising incomes. While demand initially starts as limited, centered on the wealthy elite, car ownership rates will rise rapidly as income increases following economic opening. Just as Vietnam grew 20-fold from approximately 250,000 vehicles in 2000 to over 5 million by 2024, a realistic goal for North Korea is to surpass 2 million passenger cars within 15 years of denuclearization. SUVs are expected to account for an overwhelmingly large share of the passenger car market. In the early stages, when North Korea's road infrastructure is poor, SUVs and pickup trucks will account for 60 to 70% of the passenger car market, and as roads improve, the proportion of sedans and hatchbacks will gradually increase. Let us look at the market outlook for 10 and 20 years following North Korea's denuclearization. Based on 10 years after denuclearization, the North Korean automotive market is expected to grow to an annual new car sales volume of approximately 300,000 units, with Chinese brands accounting for 50%, South Korean brands 30%, and others 20%. An annual used car distribution volume of 300,000 units, a total fleet of 2 million vehicles, and a contribution of 5.8% to GDP by the automotive industry. Based on 20 years after denuclearization, it is projected that annual new car sales will reach 1 million units, the total fleet will reach 5 million vehicles, domestic manufacturing share of CKD assembly will reach 40–50%, and the integration of North Korean-made automotive parts into global supply chains will become a reality. This scenario is the most similar to Vietnam's automotive industrialization path, making it possible for North Korea to catch up in 15 to 20 years with the path Vietnam took over 25 years. This is because North Korea has a higher level of education than Vietnam and has a much more powerful technology and capital partner in South Korea right next door. Let us examine the prospects for the structure of the automotive industry and market from various angles following the transition to a market economy after denuclearization. First, let us look at the step-by-step industrialization path within the import versus domestic manufacturing structure. Stage 1, the period of 0 to 5 years after denuclearization, is a market dominated by imports. In the initial stages, imports of finished vehicles and used cars occupy over 95% of the market. The domestic manufacturing base starts anew with virtually no resources, and the structure is 100% dependent on imported parts. During this period, Chinese finished vehicle importers and South Korean and Japanese used car dealers compete to secure market dominance. Stage 2, the period of 5 to 10 years, involves the reconstruction of SKD and CKD assembly production. The system shifts to one where foreign automotive companies import parts in a semi-knockdown SKD or completely disassembled CKD state and assemble them within North Korea. Currently, Kumpyong Automobile operates using this method, and after denuclearization, South Korean, Japanese, and Chinese companies will establish additional assembly plants. Job creation and technology acquisition begin during this stage. Stage 3, spanning 10 to 20 years, involves the industrialization of domestic parts. This stage involves lowering the proportion of SKD and CKD assembly while increasing the proportion of domestically produced parts. This mirrors the path South Korea took to gradually increase its localization rate following the pony in the 1970s. Automotive parts assembly plants in the Kaesong Industrial Complex and the Haeju Special Economic Zone are integrated into the supply chain. During this stage, the job creation effects of North Korea's automotive industry begin in earnest. Stage 4, after 20 years, presents the possibility of the emergence of independent brands in the long term. In the long term, there is a possibility that a state-supported North Korean automotive brand, similar to Vietnam's VinFast, could emerge. However, this is a scenario that requires at least 20 to 30 years in terms of infrastructure, technology accumulation, and investment scale. 2. Regarding the structure of domestic versus export, a concentration on the domestic market is projected for the first 15 years. In the initial stages of opening, the North Korean automotive market functions as a purely domestic consumption market. Because domestic demand, generated by a population of 25 million and a rapidly growing middle class following economic opening, is overwhelmingly large, the domestic market itself is sufficiently attractive before discussing export possibilities. Export potential opens up first in automotive parts. Once subcontracted assembly by South Korean automotive parts companies begins in the Kaesong Industrial Complex or the Haeju Special Economic Zone, North Korean-made parts will be incorporated into the supply chains of South Korean and Japanese finished vehicles. This will effectively become the first export route for the North Korean automotive industry. Exporting finished vehicles is a goal for at least 20 years from now, and for this to become possible, brand recognition, quality certification, and passing international safety standards must be achieved beforehand. 3. Let's look at the competitive landscape by country and brand. Chinese brands occupy the position of initial dominant players and midterm pressurers. Even before denuclearization, China had already solidified its position as the absolute powerhouse in the North Korean automotive market through brands such as FAW, SAIC Motor, Chang'an, and Jinbei. Immediately after denuclearization, Chinese brands will hold a competitive advantage in dealer networks, parts supply chains, yuan settlements, and long-term installment financing conditions. In particular, Chinese electric vehicle brands such as BYD will rapidly penetrate the market by aligning with national electric vehicle policies, such as the initiative for the Pyongyang Electric Vehicle Exhibition. With a price range of $8,000 to $25,000, it will aim to capture 60 to 70% of the initial North Korean new car market. However, Chinese brands also have long-term limitations. With the lifting of Western sanctions, as North Korean consumers become more sensitive to quality and branding, preference for South Korean, Japanese, and Western brands is expected to rise. South Korean brands hold a leading position in the midterm. They also benefit from the Korean Peninsula premium. Hyundai and Kia are in the most strategically advantageous position in the North Korean automotive market following denuclearization. This combines the political premium of inter-Korean economic cooperation, linguistic and cultural homogeneity, existing experience with the Kaesong Industrial Complex, and trans-Korean logistics routes. The entry strategy for South Korean brands is expected to proceed in 3 stages. First, they will secure brand familiarity through used car exports. Subsequently, they will simultaneously achieve local job creation and technology transfer through CKD assembly production. Finally, by promoting the localization of parts within the Kaesong and Haeju industrial complexes, they will become the most attractive partners to the North Korean government. Regarding price positioning, it is likely to be set at a 20–30% premium compared to Chinese brands, while lowering the actual purchase burden through special financing conditions for inter-Korean cooperation. Japanese brands hold a long-term position due to their quality premium. Toyota, Honda, and Nissan occupy the top tier in terms of quality and reliability. In the used car market, the durability and fuel efficiency of Japanese cars are the most attractive attributes for North Korean consumers. Western brands from Germany, the United States, and France occupy a long-term premium market position. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi are currently used by North Korea's top elite class, and entering the official dealership market after denuclearization would secure immediate premium demand. However, since the market size is very limited in the initial stages, parallel entry through South Korean and Chinese dealer networks is more realistic than an independent market. Tesla has the potential to enter the market starting 7 to 10 years after denuclearization, when electric vehicle infrastructure begins to be established. 4. Let's examine the conditions and pathways for rebuilding North Korea's own brands. Currently, it is estimated that North Korea lacks the capability to develop automobiles independently. However, if technology is accumulated through the operation of joint assembly plants with South Korean and Chinese companies after denuclearization, North Korean-made vehicles under their own independent brands could emerge within 10 to 15 years. Considering that it took Vietnam's VinFast 5 years from the launch of its first vehicle in 2019 to its listing on the U.S. NASDAQ in 2024, a North Korean independent brand represents a long-term scenario where it may only achieve substantial competitiveness after the 2040s. The most realistic strategy for a North Korean independent brand is to start with commercial vehicles. By leveraging Seungri Motors' truck production experience and incorporating South Korean and Chinese technologies, a goal could be set to achieve a 50% domestic production ratio for small trucks for the domestic market within 10 years. 5. Let's examine the specific opportunities and challenges of the North Korean electric vehicle EV market. North Korea plans to host the Pyongyang International EV Expo in Pyongyang in September 2027. The slogan is carbon-free mobility, and plans for a 172-kilometer EV rally course from Wonsan to Pyongyang are concrete. However, given the current state of North Korea's charging infrastructure and international sanctions, there are many hurdles to overcome before this can be realized. Paradoxically, the electric vehicle EV market after denuclearization holds advantages for North Korea. Given its near-total lack of infrastructure for internal combustion engine vehicles, North Korea can theoretically skip the internal combustion engine stage and transition directly to EVs using a leapfrog strategy. In particular, introducing EVs first, centered on electric buses and taxis within cities, also has the effect of dispersing electricity demand. China's BYD is expected to hold the strongest dominance in the EV sector, while South Korea's Hyundai Ioniq series and Kia are chasing it in the premium EV position. For North Korea itself, establishing an EV component production base utilizing rare earth elements from North Hamgyong province as battery materials is the most advantageous long-term positioning. 6. The automotive parts market represents a key opportunity for domestic manufacturing. The North Korean automotive parts market after denuclearization consists of two layers. The first is the domestic market for repair and replacement parts. The demand for repair parts for the existing fleet of 200,000 to 300,000 vehicles will explode immediately. As the distribution network for Chinese-made compatible parts currently in use in North Korea is immediately legalized, Chinese parts distribution companies will be the first to benefit. The second factor is the market for manufacturing parts for export. Once subcontracted assembly by South Korean automotive parts companies begins in the Kaesong Industrial Complex and the Haeju Special Economic Zone, North Korea will be integrated into the global automotive parts supply chain. Labor-intensive components such as wiring harnesses, interior materials, seats, and brake pads are expected to be produced in North Korea first. In summary, North Korea is projected to become the last production base of the Northeast Asian automotive supply chain rather than an automobile-producing nation. The best strategy for North Korea is to establish a mass production base with Chinese capital, achieve high-value-added production using South Korean and Japanese technology, and evolve by developing low-cost export models. Constructing a West Coast automotive belt with Kaesong, Haeju, and Nampo as the three major hubs is the most effective approach. This framework is perfectly linked to the previously discussed West Sea Inter-Korean Peace Road, the Gyeongdong-Haeju Economic Corridor, the division of labor between Kaesong and Haeju, and the Nampo-Waudo Special Economic Zone. The North Korean automobile market will become a point where South Korea's technological prowess and China's price competitiveness collide head-on, and the Ganghwa-Haeju land route connection will be the decisive key for South Korean companies to gain the upper hand in this competition through logistical efficiency. Next time, we will look at the outlook for the power industry following North Korea's denuclearization and transition to a market economy. Thank you.